Just before the holidays, my brother messaged me, "Only show up if you've done something worthwhile." That same morning, my parents reached out, asking me to cover his debt. I sent a single penny with a memo. "Best of luck, pal." A week later, he invited me to a truce dinner, claiming, "Family stays united." Everyone sat silently as I unzipped my satchel. The bank had just informed me I was tied to a massive loan for his new home. I stayed quiet, slid a dossier across the table and said, "Thought you'd like to see this." I stared at his text for a full minute, trying to wrap my head around it. 10 words sharp as a blade. No greeting, no explanation, just a smug directive cloaked as sibling wisdom. That same day, while I was still half chuckling, half stunned by his nerve, my phone pinged again. This time, it was Mom. I didn't need to read it to feel the knot in my gut. I knew that tone, the "we need to discuss something serious" kind, the "we're about to lean on you" kind. Her message said, "Darling, your brother's house payment is due. He's overwhelmed. Can you cover it this month, just until he's steady?" I sank back in my seat, staring at my lukewarm tea. My brother Ethan, the favored son, the one who always sidestepped accountability, needed rescuing again. And as usual, I was the one they called. He'd bought a lavish house 2 months prior, extravagant, overpriced, and far beyond his means. I saw it coming. Our parents saw it. Even Ethan knew it, but he wanted to flaunt, to prove he was outshining me. I opened my banking app, scrolled to my backup account, labeled rainy days. Instead of sending the $2,100 they'd implied, I transferred 1 cent. With a note, "Best of luck, pal." The quiet that followed was golden. No calls, no furious texts, nothing. Until a week later. Ethan sent an invite to what he called a reconciliation meal. Said he wanted to mend things before the holidays. Said family stays united. My parents backed him up. Mom even dropped her "forgiveness is the season's true gift" line. I didn't respond immediately. I wanted to see how far this charade would stretch. So I went. The house was decked out like a magazine spread. Fairy lights, candles, festive trays. They were all seated when I arrived, clutching my worn leather briefcase, the one I never brought to family gatherings. Ethan greeted me at the door. "Hey, good to see you." His smile was broad, like he'd already scripted the evening's happy ending. A heartwarming family reunion for the memory books. We sat, chit-chat, forced grins. Dad tapped his glass, gave a speech about togetherness. I waited. Then as the roast was served, I pulled a folder from my briefcase. Beige, heavy, silent. "Thought you'd like to see this?" I said, sliding it across the table. They stared at it like it was a live grenade. It wasn't, but the papers inside, they were explosive. I didn't need to spell it out. The bank's fraud division logo was stamped on the front page, in bold. My name, my signature, except it wasn't mine. A 6-figure loan I never requested, and the address linked to it, Ethan's new house. The silence crashed like thunder. Even the kids, Ethan's twins, stopped squirming. Dad fumbled for his glasses, hands shaking, and opened the folder like he didn't already suspect what was inside. Ethan's grin wavered. "What's this?" "Oh, I think you know," I said. "Cool as frost." Mom gasped as she scanned the pages. "This has to be a mistake. There's no way." "Ethan, tell him it's not." But Ethan was mute, staring at the documents, blinking like he could wish them away. "This is a bank notice," I continued. "Apparently I co-signed your mortgage. Except I didn't." Dad looked up. "That's impossible. You must have signed something. Maybe you forgot." I chuckled. Forgot applying for a loan I had no use for? Forgot tying myself to 6 figures of debt for a house I'll never set foot in? I turned to Ethan. "Let me guess. You used that old power of attorney from Mom's surgery, the one meant to be temporary, the one you conveniently kept." Ethan's mouth opened, then shut. It was temporary. I just needed help to qualify. The bank was brutal. "And you thought I wouldn't notice?" He leaned forward, frantic. "I was going to fix it. I'd refinance. Put it in my name. I swear." "You forged my signature on legal documents," I said, unflinching. Dad slammed his fist on the table. "Enough, both of you," his voice boomed. "This is the holidays. We're not doing this here." "Right," I said, "because we never do it here. We don't talk about how Ethan's been draining me since we were kids. We don't talk about how you all treat me like I'm stingy because I won't fund his every reckless choice. Mom's lips quivered. That's unfair. Is it? I shot back. I counted on my fingers. High school, I quit college to cover Ethan's car loan after he totaled the one you bought him. A year later, I co-signed for his trade school. He dropped out in a month, leaving me with the bill. When he got evicted, who paid his deposit? Who got him a job at my firm, only for him to steal from the cash drawer? Dad opened his mouth, but I kept going. And every time you said the same thing. He's your brother. He's finding his way. Be patient. Well, he's 34. How much longer does he get to find his way with my money? You're not flawless, Ethan snapped, voice rising. You always acted superior. Just because you got your life together. Just because you didn't mess up. I turned to him. I don't think I'm better. I just stopped expecting others to fix my mistakes. You don't get what it's like, Ethan hissed. I had to prove I could build something too. I needed that house to show I wasn't a failure. What you did might be illegal, I said. No, He raked a hand through his hair. It's not like that. Mom reached for my hand. We can sort this out. Let's not ruin the season. Ruin it? I laughed coldly. The season was ruined the moment you asked me for money right after Ethan told me not to come unless I was worthwhile. Dad's jaw clenched. He didn't mean it like that. He was stressed. He meant exactly that, I said. And so did I when I sent him a penny. I stood. You have 30 days to get my name off that loan. I've already contacted a lawyer in the bank. If you don't, I'll take legal action. I grabbed the folder, tucked it back in my briefcase, and walked out. No one stopped me. No one spoke. And just like that, the holiday was over. I hadn't expected it to spiral this far. At first, I thought I could walk away, let them stew in their own shame, if they even felt any. But you don't grow up in a family like mine without knowing the playbook. 2 days later, the calls started. Mom first. Sweetie, can we talk? Ethan's struggling. Then Dad. We need to sit down and settle this like adults. Then Ethan with the nerve to send a video message, sitting in his half-furnished living room, eyes glistening with crocodile tears, holding a beer like he was auditioning for a drama. Look, I messed up. I panicked. The bank was on my case. I thought you'd never agree if I asked. But it's me. Your brother? You'd really turn me in over this? I stared at my phone, floored. A mistake? You don't accidentally file a loan application in someone else's name and fake their signature. You don't accidentally drag your sibling into 6 figures of debt. He was playing his usual part. Ethan, the misunderstood dreamer who meant well but never followed through. And everyone always let him off. Except me. Not this time. So I sent my own video. Calm, blunt, no theatrics. I've filed a fraud report with the bank. They're investigating. I've submitted handwriting samples, a timeline, and emails. You have 10 days to remove my name. After that, I go legal. No fluff, no negotiation. Just the truth. That's when things escalated. They showed up at my apartment the next night. I heard the banging before I muted the TV. Peered through the peephole. There they were. Ethan, Mom, Dad. I didn't open the door. Dad yelled through it. This isn't how family resolves things. I laughed so hard I had to cover my mouth. Mom's voice came next. Please, honey, we can't let this tear us apart. Then Ethan. You're really going to destroy my life over some documents? You're not perfect either. That broke me. I swung the door open. They looked like they'd been caught robbing a charity. I didn't speak at first, just stood there, cold air from the hallway brushing my shins. Then I said, You already broke the family. I'm just admitting it. Dad stepped closer. Son, be rational. Rational? I asked. I pulled out my phone, tapped a few times, and held it up. This is the recording of Ethan telling me not to show up unless I was worthwhile. Want to hear it again? Their faces shifted, all three. And this, I continued, flipping to another app, is the bank's email confirming the forgery. It's evidence. Ethan was sweating. Come on, we're brothers. I looked at him. Brothers don't steal. Brothers don't lie. Brothers don't drag each other into financial disasters and call it a misunderstanding. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. Go to your car. Contact the bank. Fix this. Get my name off the loan. If I don't have a notarized release in 10 days, I go to the police. Mom gasped. You wouldn't. He's your brother. I would. And I'd sleep fine. You'll destroy the family, she cried. I tilted my head. There's nothing left to destroy. You just hate seeing the pieces. Then I played my final card. I reached into an envelope taped to my doorframe and handed them a copy, a certified letter from my attorney, suing Ethan for fraud and damages, including emotional distress. You made grown-up choices, I said. Time to own them. They stood there, petrified. Then I closed the door, locked it, and made myself a sandwich. That night, I slept without clenching my jaw for the first time in years. My phone stopped buzzing. No daily sob stories from Mom, no manipulative voicemails from Dad about family loyalty, no texts from Ethan with passive-aggressive emojis and typos. Just quiet. And let me tell you, quiet is intoxicating. At first, I braced for the fallout. Maybe the bank would pull some trick. Maybe the police would call. But nothing happened. What did happen was this. Ethan folded. On day 5 after my legal notice, I got a call. Not from him. He didn't have the courage. It was his realtor, asking politely if I'd sign a release to help sell the house. I said I'd do it as soon as Ethan provided notarized paperwork removing me from the loan. Fair deal. Within a day, I had a PDF in my inbox. Signed, notarized, done. I was free. But the real win wasn't that. It was when Dad showed up at my workplace. No call, no text. Just walked in, looking a decade older than last time. I was in a meeting. My assistant tried to stop him, but he barged in. Son, we need to talk. My client blinked. Should I? I nodded. Give us a minute. Dad shut the door and scanned my office like it was foreign territory, like he'd just realized Hullabaloo noticed his youngest son had actually built something. Didn't know you had all this, he said, eyeing my desk. Looks impressive. It is impressive, I replied. He nodded, still standing. Your mother's struggling. She thinks you've gone too far. We all do. I stayed quiet. He pressed on. Ethan's talking about leaving the state. Says you've turned the family against him. I haven't said a word to anyone, I said. If they're turning on him, that's his own mess. Dad finally sat. He's still your brother. He crossed a line. He flinched. We raised you better than this, he said quietly. You used to be kinder. No, I said. I used to be a pushover. There's a difference. More silence. Then he leaned in. Your mother cried. Real tears. I bet, I said. It's tough watching your kid finally stand up for himself. He stood weary. We were trying to keep things together. No, I said. You were trying to keep me in line so Ethan didn't have to carry his own weight. Then I said it, the truth I'd held for years. I'm not your backup plan, not your ATM, not your safety net. I'm your son, and you treated me like a tool. He didn't respond, just stared like I was a stranger. I'm done, I said. I'm not coming back to play the good son. He left without a word, and something in me released. Weeks later, my lawyer added a non-disclosure agreement to stop Ethan's social media pity parties. His posts about family betrayal disappeared overnight. I heard the house sold at a loss. Market had tanked. Then the messages started. Cousin Lila. I had no clue what he did. Coffee sometime. My uncle. Not everyone bought his story. Hope you're okay. Even my ex. That took guts. I never saw that strength in you. I didn't reply to most, but I grinned. Because that's what happens when you stop being the villain in someone else's comeback story and start writing your own. I moved to a new apartment. Same city, but brighter. Big windows, fresh paint, no ghosts in the corners. I bought new furniture. Not used, not borrowed, not tied to strings. Mine. I slept better, ate better. My therapist said I seemed unburdened. And here's the wild part. I started mentoring a kid in my building. Bright, shy, a bit too eager to please. Reminded me of younger me. One day after we worked on his college application, he asked, "How'd you get so good at setting limits?" I laughed. 30 years of learning the hard way. But the real full circle moment? Last week, I got a wedding invite, not Ethan's. It was from his ex-girlfriend, the one he ditched 3 years ago after she told him she was pregnant. She raised the kid alone. Found me on LinkedIn. The note read, "You were always the honorable one. Thanks for not treating people like pawns. You probably don't recall, but that night I stayed for dinner. You cleared the table while we watched a movie." That stuck with me. I didn't know how to respond, so I didn't. Just held the card and let the calm settle over me, because the truth is, I won. Not with vengeance, not with yelling, not with torching bridges, but by walking away while they still held the lighter. I used to think being the good one was enough. Stay quiet, help out, don't complain. Keep giving until someone says thanks or you feel enough. That myth died when I sent Ethan a penny. I spent years carrying loads I didn't create, paying for choices I didn't make, soaking up blame like a sponge for a family that never checked if I was okay. What did I get? A forged loan, a holiday shakedown, and a seat at a table where everyone knew I was being screwed and stayed silent. No more. The first time I said no, something clicked, not just in how they saw me, but in how I saw myself. I stopped apologizing for having boundaries, stopped doubting my gut, stopped saving people who'd let me sink the second it suited them. And something odd happened. The burden lifted, physically. I lost 20 pounds in 3 months without effort. My shoulders stopped hurting. My teeth stopped grinding at night. Turns out, carrying a family's dysfunction weighs more than you think. I started rebuilding, not just my finances, but me. The apartment, simple, but serene. Every item chosen with purpose. No hand-me-downs. No guilt decor. Nothing bought with obligation. I joined a kickboxing gym, not to fight, but to feel what it's like to hold your ground. And slowly, the right people appeared. My neighbor invited me for dinner. I braced for a catch, but there wasn't one. Just warm food and laughs. A colleague gave me a holiday card. "You seem different, brighter, happier. Hope it lasts." I said, "Me too. My family?" They went quiet for a bit. Then Mom called, voice soft, acting like nothing happened. Asked if I'd come to spring brunch. I asked if Ethan would be there. "Of course," she said. "Then I won't," I replied. Dad called next. Said he missed me. Said the house felt hollow without me. I asked if he missed me, or the version of me who never said no. He hung up. Ethan never called. Word is, he moved in with a buddy after the house sold. Started a podcast about rebuilding after betrayal. The irony nearly choked me. Eventually, they stopped reaching out. The silence became a gift. But here's the moment that lingers. The true close. A random Tuesday, rain pattering on my balcony. I was reading when a letter slid through my mail slot. No sender. I opened it. One typed page. "You did what I couldn't. You said no. You walked away. You showed us it's possible. Thank you." No signature. Maybe my cousin. Maybe my uncle. Maybe Ethan's ex. Someone still stuck in that toxic cycle, seeing me break free and realizing they could too. I folded the letter and tucked it into the drawer where I keep relics of who I was. Then I poured a drink. Not to toast, but to reflect. Because healing isn't about erasing what they did. It's about not needing their apology. It's about not craving love that should have been free. It's about becoming who you were meant to be once you stop bleeding for others. I used to fear being cut off from family. Now I know the real fear was never cutting the cord. Now I live in truth. And that truth is clear. I'm not their bank. I'm not theirs at all. I'm mine, and I'll never go back. Not for money, not for peace, not for guilt. I closed that book and didn't look back. For the first time, I felt free.